The Young and the Restless spoilers. A Christmas revelation. Diane's truth unveiled. The Abbott estate was radiant that Christmas Eve, bathed in the warm glow of twinkling lights and filled with the sound of joyous laughter. Diane Jenkins couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the love and warmth surrounding her. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she was part of something bigger, a family. The Abbotts had welcomed her into their fold, offering her not just a place at their table, but a piece of their hearts. This wasn't just another holiday for Diane. It was her first Christmas with the family she had longed to truly connect with. For so many years, she had carried secrets and regrets, unsure if she would ever find the courage or the opportunity to make amends. But now, as she sat among them, listening to the sound of Kyle's laughter and the gentle murmur of Jack's voice, she knew it was time. The gift of a journal. As the evening wore on, Diane rose from her seat and addressed the room, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I wanted to give you all something special," she began, holding up a beautifully bound journal. "This is a piece of me, a record of my thoughts, my dreams, and my hopes. It's also a place where I've written the truths I've been too afraid to say out loud." The family exchanged curious glances as Diane handed the journal to Kyle. His face lit up with excitement, his love for his mother shining through as he eagerly opened the first page. Diane watched him with a mixture of pride and apprehension, knowing that within those pages lay a truth that could change everything. Kyle's discovery. Kyle read the journal with rapt attention, his brow furrowing and his smile softening as he absorbed his mother's words. Diane had poured her heart into those pages, recounting moments of joy, pain, and reflection. But as Kyle turned the page, a folded piece of paper fell into his lap. Curious, he unfolded it, his eyes scanning the document. It was a DNA test result. The room grew silent as Kyle's expression shifted from curiosity to confusion, and finally to shock. He looked up at Diane, his voice trembling. "Mom, what is this?" Diane's heart ached as she saw the hurt in her son's eyes. She had known this moment would be difficult, but seeing his pain was almost unbearable. She took a deep breath and began to explain. "Kyle," she said softly, her voice breaking, "I've been carrying this secret for so long. I didn't know how to tell you. But tonight, surrounded by family, I felt it was time to finally be honest." Kyle shook his head, struggling to process her words. "You're saying I'm not Jack's son?" Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Kyle. I never meant to hurt you. At the time, I thought I was doing what was best for you. Jack has been an incredible father to you, and I never wanted to take that away. But the truth is, your biological father is someone else. I just couldn't keep this from you any longer." The fallout. The room was heavy with silence as the weight of Diane's confession sank in. Jack, who had been quietly observing, placed a reassuring hand on Kyle's shoulder. "Kyle," he said gently, "you'll always be my son. Nothing will ever change that." But Kyle wasn't ready to be consoled. He stood abruptly, the journal slipping from his hands. "Why now?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Why would you drop this on me tonight, of all nights? Did you think this would make things better?" Diane reached out to him, her own tears flowing freely. "I just wanted to be honest with you," she pleaded. "I didn't want there to be any more secrets between us." Kyle stepped back, shaking his head. "This isn't honesty, Mom. This is betrayal. You've lied to me my whole life, and now you expect me to just accept it?" Diane's heart shattered as Kyle stormed out of the room, leaving the family in stunned silence. The joy and warmth of the evening had been replaced by tension and heartache. Diane sank into her chair, her hands trembling. Jack's response. Jack, ever the steady presence, knelt beside Diane. "You did what you thought was right," he said softly. "But secrets like this, they're never easy to share. Give him time. He loves you, Diane. He just needs time to process." Diane nodded, though her tears didn't stop. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered. "I wanted to start fresh, to build something real with all of you. But now I've just torn everything apart." Jack squeezed her hand. Families are messy, Diane. But we're strong. We'll get through this. Together. Kyle's reflection outside. Kyle stood in the cold, the snow falling softly around him. His mind raced with questions and emotions he couldn't begin to untangle. Diane's confession had shaken him to his core, but as the initial shock began to fade, a new feeling crept in, empathy. She had been brave to tell the truth, knowing it might cost her his trust. And Jack, his father in every way that mattered, hadn't hesitated to reaffirm his love. Kyle realized that while his world felt upside down, the people who loved him hadn't changed. Maybe it was time for him to find a way to forgive. A new beginning. Later that night, Kyle returned to the house. Diane looked up as he entered, her eyes red from crying. Before she could say anything, Kyle pulled her into a hug. I'm still hurt, he admitted. And it's going to take time for me to process this. But I know you love me. And I love you, too. Diane clung to him, her heart full of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Kyle, she whispered. I just want us to move forward, with no more secrets. As the family gathered once more, the tension began to lift. The night hadn't gone as planned, but it had brought them closer in a way none of them could have anticipated. For Diane, it was a Christmas she would never forget. A night of truth, pain, and ultimately, love. This story captures the emotional highs and lows of the moment, balancing the drama with a sense of hope and reconciliation. Let me know if you'd like to expand or modify any part. Jack's truth, a father beyond blood. When Diane finally mustered the courage to tell Jack the truth, it wasn't the revelation itself that stunned him. It was the years she had carried this secret, the weight of it hidden beneath her composed exterior. Jack Abbott had always prided himself on his resilience, his ability to navigate life's many twists and turns. But this struck a deeper chord. Kyle wasn't his biological son. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, their weight undeniable yet strangely inconsequential. For over 3 decades, Jack had been Kyle's father in every way that mattered. He had watched him grow, guided him through life's challenges, celebrated his successes, and comforted him in moments of failure. How could a piece of paper ever change that? Sitting across from Diane in the dimly lit study, Jack took a deep breath. You should have told me sooner, he said, his voice calm but firm. But I understand why you didn't. You were scared, and you didn't want to risk what we've built. Diane's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. Jack, I was terrified. You've been such an amazing father to Kyle. I didn't want to take that away from him, or from you. Jack leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. Diane, I'm not angry. Disappointed? Maybe. But not angry. Because at the end of the day, Kyle is my son. He always has been, and he always will be. Nothing can change that. Kyle's struggle. While Jack found a sense of clarity in the revelation, Kyle's reaction was far more turbulent. The young man had always placed significant value on appearances, on the perfect image of his family, his career, his life. To learn that his identity was built on a foundation of lies was a blow he couldn't easily reconcile. Kyle sat in his room, staring at the DNA test result, his mind racing. He had idolized Jack, strived to emulate him, and taken pride in being his son. Now, that connection felt frayed, as though it had been stolen from him. How could he face the world knowing he wasn't truly an Abbott by blood? When Jack found him hours later, sitting alone in the dark, Kyle didn't look up. You must be furious with her, he muttered. For lying to you. For lying to me. Jack took a seat beside him, his tone gentle but firm. Kyle, listen to me. Blood doesn't define family. Love does. You are my son, always have been, always will be. Nothing Diane said changes that. Kyle turned to face him, his expression a mixture of pain and confusion. But how can you just accept it? Doesn't it matter to you at all? Jack placed a reassuring hand on Kyle's shoulder. Of course it matters. But not in the way you think. I've spent over 30 years loving you, guiding you, and being proud of the man you've become. That's what matters. Not a DNA test. Diane's decision. Diane knew that revealing the truth to Kyle and Jack was only the beginning. The Abbott family wasn't just a collection of individuals, it was an institution, a legacy built on trust, loyalty, and shared history. She couldn't expect to rebuild her place in that legacy without being completely honest. Gathering the courage to face Tracy, Ashley, Billy, Summer, and Kyle all at once was no small feat. Each member of the Abbott family had their own relationship with Diane, their own history colored by moments of conflict, reconciliation, and, occasionally, love. But this was bigger than any one relationship. This was about truth, and Diane was done hiding. The family meeting. The Abbott living room was quiet as the family gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Jack stood beside Diane, a steadying presence that gave her the strength to speak. "I asked you all here because I owe you the truth," Diane began, her voice steady despite the nervous tremor in her hands. "For years, I've carried a secret about Kyle and about Jack." The room grew tense as Diane recounted the story. She spoke of her fear, her mistakes, and her desire to protect Kyle and Jack from a truth she thought might destroy them. When she finally revealed the DNA test results, the reactions were varied. Ashley's eyes narrowed, her skepticism apparent. "So, you've been lying to all of us this entire time? What else aren't you telling us, Diane?" Tracy, ever the voice of compassion, placed a hand on Diane's arm. "Thank you for telling us the truth," she said softly. "It couldn't have been easy." Billy leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Well, that explains a lot," he muttered, earning a sharp look from Ashley. Summer, sitting beside Kyle, took his hand in hers. "Kyle," she whispered, "this doesn't change who you are. You're still the same person, and we all love you." Kyle, however, remained silent, his gaze fixed on the floor. The weight of his family's words pressed down on him, but he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Diane had meant well, he could see that, but her actions had left a wound that would take time to heal. Healing the fractures over the next few days, the Abbott family grappled with the fallout of Diane's confession. Jack remained steadfast in his support of both Kyle and Diane, acting as a bridge between them as they navigated their complicated emotions. For Kyle, the path to acceptance was a difficult one. But as he spent time with Jack, he began to see the truth in his father's words. Their bond wasn't defined by biology, it was built on years of shared experiences, love, and understanding. For Diane, the journey was equally challenging. She had to rebuild the trust she had broken, not just with Kyle, but with the entire Abbott family. Yet, for the first time in years, she felt a sense of relief. The burden of her secret was gone, and she could finally face her family with honesty. A new beginning. On Christmas morning, the Abbotts gathered once more, their earlier tensions softened by the spirit of the holiday. As the family exchanged gifts, Kyle handed Diane a small box. Inside was a necklace with a simple charm, a symbol of their enduring bond. "I'm still hurt," Kyle admitted, his voice quiet but steady. "But I know you love me. And I'm willing to try to move forward." Diane's eyes filled with tears as she embraced him. "Thank you, Kyle. That's all I've ever wanted." As the family came together, the warmth and love that had defined their Christmas Eve returned, stronger than ever. The truth had been painful, but it had also brought them closer, reminding them of what truly mattered, family, in all its imperfect, beautiful forms.